Good morning, everyone. For teleSUR, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. Republicans have won control of the United States Senate following midterm elections Tuesday. That increases the GOP's power in the final 2 years of Barack Obama's presidency. Even with control of the Senate, the Republicans will not gain the 60-vote supermajority needed to pass major legislation. Republican Senate candidates won sweeping victories, capturing 7 Democratic-held Senate seats and giving the party control of both houses of Congress for the first time in 8 years. The GOP picked up seats in Montana, South Dakota, Arkansas, West Virginia, and North Carolina, all seats that had been previously held by Democrats. That will give Republicans a comfortable majority over Democrats in the Senate with at least 52 of the chamber's 100 seats. In the House of Representatives, the GOP won 246 of 435 seats, its largest majority since 1946. President Obama has invited congressional leaders to the White House this Friday. And U.S. citizens also went to the polls yesterday to cast their vote on several important ballot measures, including marijuana legalization, abortion, and minimum wage. Voters in Arkansas, Illinois, Nebraska, and South Dakota all approved measures to increase the state minimum wage. Voters in Oregon and the District of Columbia approved the use of marijuana by adults. The initiatives were among 147 statewide ballot measures across the country. In other electoral news, Republicans won the majority of the 36 government positions, totaling 24 posts thus far. Prior to Tuesday's elections, Republicans occupied the governor's mansions in 29 of the 50 states. To Latin America now. In Mexico, anger continues over the case of 43 missing students. It also continues as a source of social unrest among activists, families, and supporters. Thousands of demonstrators are expected to march from the presidential residence Los Pinos to the capital's main square, Zocalo, where the presidential palace is located. Today, various academic institutions will be going on a 72-hour strike to protest increasing human rights violations against students around the country and to express their growing dissent against the government of President Enrique Peña Nieto. Insecurity and violence have increased under his term. Focus also remains on the arrest of the former mayor of Iguala, José Luis Abarca, and his wife, hoping it will shed light onto the whereabouts of the missing students. In Colombia, our correspondent Charles Parkinson has been talking to people about the advances being made in the peace process and calls to reach a quick conclusion.
The 30th cycle of Colombia's peace talks came to a close on November 3rd, with victims taking part in the negotiations saying that, having come so far, both sides owe a peace agreement to all victims of the conflict. The statements came at a time when calls were arising for a quick resolution to be reached, but on the streets of Bogotá, many people urged caution over trying to end the talks too soon.
To arrive at an agreement because of outside pressure, or to arrive at an agreement because of specific political interests, is really not a good idea.
Now what is needed is a common fund that can help in the reconstruction in many areas during a post-conflict era, as well as to provide reparations to an important part of the victims.
Those words come while Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos continues a trip around Europe, where he's garnered widespread support for the process. Peace expert Carlos Medina Gallego welcomes that support, but says it must also take the form of financial backing.
To arrive at an agreement because of outside pressure, or to arrive at an agreement because of specific political interest is not really a good idea.
The negotiating teams will begin to meet once again on the 18th of November, with the 5th and final victims group set to take part in that 31st cycle. The support being shown for the peace process is palpable on both a national and international level, and so are the advances being made. Charles Parkinson, teleSUR in Bogotá, Colombia.
And thanks to Charles. Moving on now, Peruvian President Ollanta Humala will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping and Pope Francis as part of a 12-day tour through Russia, China, and Italy starting this Wednesday. The first stop on his tour includes an official visit to Russia, where he will meet with his Russian counterpart, in which the leaders will discuss economic and cooperation and trade initiatives in the area of science and technology. Later, he will head to Beijing to attend the 22nd Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. During his visit to China, Humala will participate in bilateral meetings with the member countries of the APEC. He is also scheduled to fly to the Vatican and Rome to meet Pope Francis. The new EU Foreign Affairs head, Federica Mogherini, will visit Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank this week. She made the announcement during her first news conference. She has called for the establishment of a new Palestinian state in the next few years, saying that the European community should move forward with its role in the Middle East. During the two-day visit, the EU High Representative plans to visit Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Ramallah, and Gaza. Mogherini made it clear she is not seeking the recognition of the present Palestine state, but the creation of a new one. The grim shadow of poverty, social exclusion, and equality continues to grow around the world. In Europe, the issues have become particularly concerning. The European Union Statistical Office has revealed that over 120 million people in the 28-member bloc are at risk of falling into poverty. It reveals that this means that 1 in 4 people in the region is already severely materially deprived. Almost 20% of EU citizens have a disposable income which is lower than the national poverty threshold. 10% of the population cannot pay its bills or keep their homes warm during the winter. In the United Kingdom, over 90,000 children are homeless. And we end in Central Africa this morning, where rugby is growing in popularity over football. In Gabon's capital, Libreville, a new league is kicking off the season. It will be integrated by 6 teams, which will compete in the first ever championship. It was back in the 1950s, when Gabon was still a French colony, that rugby was taken seriously. But today it is resurging among the people of the country as a relevant sport. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For teleSUR English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great Wednesday.